What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. This is the Reactions, Dad and Son. Remember to like, subscribe, and share, and also leave us a comment. Let us know what you want us to react to or talk about next. Remember the merch shop, guys. It's there's a link in the shop down there at the YouTube, right down there. Today we are doing my top 10 as a Gen Xer metal rock bands that I grew up with. But we're going to start it off real quick. These are not in any order. This is just what I grew up on when I was a kid in the late 80s, early 90s, and on through the 2000s. Probably there's some 2000 bands on there, surely. But yeah, this is what I grew up with, mainly rock and metal. So I grew up with a lot of diversity. Our first album as a family was Michael Jackson, Thriller. Everybody had that album. Also had some, other stuff thrown in there, but Prince was a main influence as well as far as my musical taste goes. But as far as the metal rock, we're going to start out with Obituary, my very first death metal band that I ever heard. And I woke up, we just did we've got a old school death metal series on the channel. You may have heard the story that I used to wake up every morning with my mom coming in and clicking on the power button on the cassette tape and playing Obituary so I get ready for school. But yeah, we're going to go through this kind of quick. The first LP that I ever got was number 9, Anthrax, my first thrash metal band that I used to listen to. The very first album that I ever got was Among the Living. And I kick myself to this day for getting rid of it because I can't find it, the original version. And if I do, it's a lot of money. So yeah, that was probably the most played album that I got when I was a kid. I had Shout at the Devil vinyl, and also had Peace of Mind vinyl. And that's coming in at number 1. I know they're not going to be in order, but there's no certain order. Number 1 is Iron Maiden. My very first album that I had was Somewhere in Time, and I ran through that album over and over and over and over and over again. Alexander the Great was one of the main songs that I loved, and it made me do a deeper dive into the history of Alexandria and Alexander the Great and his empire, the Macedonian Empire, and Philip, and just the whole era of that, of his reign and his campaigns. That album was really, really inspirational in my youth, and I showed it to my uncle. It was years older than me, but I showed it to him, and he actually dug it and went out and bought the cassette. So that was pretty cool. But yeah, number 7 would be Ozzy, not Black Sabbath, but because I heard Ozzy first, and that was Diary of a Madman, which I have the pleasure of having the LP on the record player, and it was totally amazing. The very first metal shirt that I got was The Ultimate Sin, Ozzy Osbourne, and I got the LP from a buddy of mine who has a record store in town here, The Ultimate Sin, and I paid a pretty penny for that one. But yeah, Ozzy had a major influence. It was mainly Jake E. Lee. I know Zach did some stuff here and there, and I'm a fan of Zach, but not a fanatical. A lot of people praise Zach for what he's done for the musical community, but I dug Jake E. Lee and a lot of Randy Rhoads in my very early years of becoming a metalhead. Randy Rhoads and Jake E. Lee for me were the quintessential Ozzy players for me. And that leads me into the hair metal that I first started listening to was Motley Crue. Their first album, Livewire, Too Fast for Love, were amazing. And then, like I said, I got the Shout at the Devil on vinyl. And Shout at the Devil was something else because I had to get it past Dad to get in my room to put it on the record player, and I hid the album cover because if you know, you know. The album cover is a pinnacle, but not. They weren't devil worshippers or anything like that. It was shout at the devil. It wasn't shout with the devil, to the devil. You know, bullshit like that. You go back and look at the history, you know, the controversy, whatever. So Motley Crue was one of the main first hair metal bands that I liked, just because a bunch of chicks liked it too. So I was into that. I had listened to them all the way up to Dr. Feelgood. After Dr. Feelgood came out, it was like, shit happens. That's when the grunge came out and everything. But I got into grunge, but it's not one of the bands that inspired me to listen to metal or be in the metal scene. You know, it was more the death metal and the thrash metal. And this next guy that I'm going to talk about is really what cemented my love and ultimately passion for metal, the darkness and the Aether. King Diamond. He would probably be the number one, if not my greatest inspiration in my playing of the guitar, in my arrangements. If you ever try to play King Diamond, you know they change. They have timing changes so much, and there's so much of altered patterns in their music. And Andy LaRocque does a fantastic job in laying these songs out along with King Diamond, and he with the vocal patterns and such. And it's just so it's just a big story wrapped up in one. So a lot of these other reaction videos, you know, composers and vocal coaches, and they look at the technicality of how the music was written and not the actual storytelling. So the music is part of the storytelling. So when you go through the music as a composer, you see a linear path that it should go with the, you know, the notes or the theory or the timing and the structure and stuff like that. But when you go as a poet or a lyric writer or a storyteller, there's an atmosphere that you're like, oh, that doesn't really go there. Musically, I wouldn't have composed it like that. But when you get Andy and King together, it's something else to behold. You know, you just gotta you have to look deeper into their souls and what their writing abilities can maintain through an album. So it's one thing after another as far as the story goes. And they follow that story, you know, all the way through. Most of the albums are concept albums. So, you know, that would be my main influence as far as writing music in the way that Andy writes. Metallica is my number whatever. When you're growing up in the late 80s, early 90s, you know, you're influenced by what your buddies listen to. So a lot of my buddies were listening to like Bon Jovi and Poison and Winger and, you know, Queensryche and stuff like that. There was nothing wrong with Queensryche, but I was listening to like The Cult and Prince and you know, Dire Straits. That's another one on my list. Number 2, you know, Dire Straits was synonymous with me and Dad going to my dad going to oh, sorry, I can't say that. Pew Pew shows and other outdoor stuff. So we would go on road trips and we listened to Dire Straits and we listened to Bob and Tom, you know, and it was just one of those things. But yeah, Metallica was a whole different level of sticking it to the man, I guess, back then. Because back then you had, you know, metal up your ass, Kill 'Em All, and God, it was just in your face with a razor blade, you know, trying to cut the normality of life and school and everything else out. You know, it was a kiss my ass sort of music, you know, and that's what Metallica was back in. I listened to them all the way up until the Black Album. And as anything else, you just grow out of it, or you know, some people started listening to them during the Black Album, which is fine, whatever. But yeah, so my number 4 would be Morbid Angel. Trey is the man. Trey is amazing, along with Chuck. Through my guitar playing, Andy, Chuck, and Trey really stuck to me as far as the guitar playing and their arrangements. But Morbid Angel were the ones. Deicide comes close, but Morbid Angel was probably the main death metal band after Obituary that I listened to all the time. And so that would bring us to number 3, Cannibal Corpse. Alex Webster is a phenomenal musician, along with his writing ability. And all the guys in Cannibal Corpse just rip. I mean, I've seen them probably 7, 8, 9 times since the late 90s, mid 90s, you know, and just I've always loved. And I love the Chris Barnes era. I know a lot of you guys are going to be like, no way. But yeah, I love the Chris Barnes era stuff. I not only met Chris, I met Alex, I met Markowitz, and you know, it was totally brutal. It's the same with Morbid Angel. We went to Bogart's back in the day, 96, 97. Went around back and met Dave Vincent, and Trey, and Pete. And it was amazing, man, back in, because you could just go up to the guys and be like, what's up? You know, and they'd sit there and talk to you all day, man. It was super killer. But yeah, so it's the top 10 of my Generation X metal bands that I grew up with and I are majorly influenced by. Number 10, Obituary. Number 9, Anthrax. 8, Metallica. 7, Ozzy. 6 would be King Diamond. 5, Motley Crue. 4, Morbid Angel. 3, Cannibal Corpse. 2, Dire Straits. And number 1 would be Iron Maiden. My top 10. There's so much more too. I'm going to have some honorable mentions. Rush is in there, AC/DC, Guns N' Roses, Cinderella. For various reasons, Cinderella, the voice of the voice of Cinderella is just amazing. Primus, obviously. And then so we get into, Gwar. I listened to Gwar in 5th grade. I remember one of my friends went to a Gwar show and she came back and she had a stained colored shirt. I was like, what did you do? And she's like, oh, I went to a Gwar show last night and didn't change. 5th grade. I was like, kick yes, what's Gwar? So. But yeah, Ministry, just a phenomenal bands back then. It was just so new, so fresh. Growing up in the early 90s, late 90s, early 2000s. Another honorable mention would be Tool. Everybody has that video where you come in as a Tool fan and you're all, down in the dumps or whatever, then you start finding yourself when you listen to Tool. Whatever that may be. And then System of a Down. System of a Down was so beyond their time at the time. So beyond their time at the time. A lot of people didn't like the stop, start. It was just the new era of that thing. And that thing was the mid-90s, late 90s, early 2000s. We were there, man. Let me know in the comments who was there. Let me know. Gen X, top 10 metal rock bands that I grew up with. Thanks for listening to me grumble. Thanks for listening to me ramble on, guys. This has been The Reactions, Dad and Son. Remember to like, subscribe, and share, and also leave us a comment and let us know what you want us to react to next. We'll see you on the next one.